The yoga mat slipped from my fingers, hitting the polished studio floor with a soft thud. My heart raced as I stared at the familiar face peering through the glass door. It couldn't be. Not here. Not now. "Lisa, is everything all right?" Sarah, one of my regular students, touched my arm gently. I blinked, forcing a smile. "Yes, of course. Just a little clumsy today." I bent to retrieve the mat, buying time to compose myself. When I straightened, the door swung open, and in walked the ghost from my past. Claire. "Well, well, if it isn't Lisa Thompson!" Her voice rang out, saccharine sweet and dripping with false warmth. "It's been ages, darling." I swallowed hard, acutely aware of the curious glances from my students. "Claire, what a surprise." She sauntered over, her designer yoga outfit clinging to her still perfect figure. "I just moved to the area, and when I saw your name on the studio's website, I simply had to drop in. We have so much catching up to do." "Class is about to start," I said, gesturing to the gathering students. "Perhaps another time." Claire's eyes glittered. "Oh, don't be silly. I'm here for the class. You don't mind a new student, do you?" What could I say? I forced a smile. "Of course not. Everyone's welcome." As Claire found a spot, I took my place at the front of the room, willing my hands to stop shaking. "Let's begin with some deep breaths," I instructed, closing my eyes. But even as I guided the class through the familiar poses, my mind raced. Why was she here? After all these years, after everything she'd done. "Wonderful class, Lisa," Claire gushed afterward as the other students filed out. "You haven't lost your touch." I busied myself rolling up mats. "Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it." "Oh, I did, and I couldn't help but notice that gorgeous ring. You're married now?" I instinctively twisted the band on my finger. "Yes, for 15 years." "How marvelous. I'd love to meet the lucky man. Why don't you and what's his name?" "Adam," I said, the word sticking in my throat. "Adam, of course. Why don't you and Adam join me for dinner this weekend? We can catch up properly." I hesitated, searching for an excuse, but Claire's smile never wavered, her eyes locked on mine. I knew that look. She wouldn't take no for an answer. "I'll have to check with Adam," I said finally. "He works late most nights." "Oh, I'm sure you can convince him," Claire purred, "for old time's sake." As she sashayed out the door, I sank onto a nearby bench, my legs suddenly weak. Old times. The very thought made my stomach churn. That evening, I stood at the kitchen counter, chopping vegetables with more force than necessary. The knife came down with a satisfying thwack against the cutting board. "Whoa there, chef." Adam's voice startled me. He wrapped his arms around my waist, peering over my shoulder. "What did those carrots ever do to you?" I leaned back into his embrace, savoring the familiar warmth. "Sorry, just a little distracted." "Tough day at the studio?" I hesitated. "Actually, an old friend showed up." Adam released me, reaching for a piece of carrot. "Oh, anyone I know?" "No," I said quickly. Too quickly. "Just someone from college." "Claire." "Claire," he repeated, frowning slightly. "You've never mentioned her before." I turned back to the cutting board. "We weren't that close." "But close enough for her to drop by your studio?" I could feel his eyes on me, curious and a little concerned. I forced a laugh. "You know how it is. Some people just can't let go of the past." Adam chuckled, the tension broken. "Well, as long as she's not trying to rope you into some pyramid scheme or something. If only it were that simple." I thought of Claire's invitation, of the predatory gleam in her eye. "Actually," I said slowly, "she did invite us to dinner this weekend." Adam raised an eyebrow. "Both of us? That's a bit forward for an old acquaintance." I shrugged, aiming for nonchalance. "That's Claire for you. Always been a social butterfly." "Well," Adam said, stealing another carrot, "I suppose we could go. Might be fun to hear some stories from your wild college days." My knife slipped, nicking my finger. A bright bead of blood welled up, and with it, a surge of panic. What had I done? The restaurant buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses, but all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. Claire sat across from us, her red lips curved in a perpetual smile as she regaled Adam with stories from our college days. "Oh, Lisa was always so serious," she laughed, touching Adam's arm. "I had to practically drag her out to parties." I gripped my wineglass tighter. "I remember it differently," I said, forcing a smile. "You were the one always begging me for help with assignments." Claire's eyes flashed, but her smile never wavered. "Ancient history, darling." "Adam, did Lisa ever tell you about the time we—" As she launched into another exaggerated tale, I caught Adam's eye. He was hanging on her every word, laughing at all the right moments. I hadn't seen him this animated in years. "Excuse me," I murmured, standing abruptly. "I need some air." Outside, I leaned against the cool brick wall, taking deep breaths. This was a mistake. I should never have agreed to this dinner. "Lisa?" Adam's voice startled me. "Are you okay?" I plastered on a smile. "Fine, just a little warm in there." He frowned, studying my face. "You've been acting strange all night. What's going on?" Before I could answer, the restaurant door swung open. Claire sauntered out, her perfume wafting over us. "Everything all right out here?" Adam turned to her, his frown dissolving. "Just checking on Lisa. She's not feeling well." "Oh, poor thing," Claire cooed, her eyes gleaming. "Why don't you head home, sweetie? Adam and I can settle the bill." I opened my mouth to protest, but Adam was already nodding. "Good idea. I'll be home soon, Lisa." As I watched them disappear back into the restaurant, a chill ran down my spine. This was exactly what I'd been afraid of. The next morning, I woke to an empty bed. Adam's side was cold, untouched. I found him on the couch, still in last night's clothes. "Adam?" I shook him gently. "What happened?" He groaned, rubbing his eyes. "Claire and I got to talking after you left. Lost track of time." "Talking?" I echoed, my stomach churning. "Until dawn?" He sat up, defensive. "It's not a big deal, Lisa. We were catching up." "Catching up? You barely know her." "Well, maybe I'd like to," he snapped. "She's actually interesting to talk to." The words hit me like a slap. I stepped back, hurt and anger warring inside me. "And I'm not?" Adam sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "That's not what I meant. It's just... When was the last time we did anything spontaneous? Anything fun?" "I didn't realize our life was so boring," I said coldly. He stood, frustration etched on his face. "That's not... Look, I'm going to shower. We can talk about this later." As the bathroom door slammed, I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. This was happening too fast. Claire had been back in our lives for barely a week, and already she was driving a wedge between us. My phone buzzed with a text. "Claire, had such a lovely time last night. Adam's a real gem. Lucky you. Yoga later?" I stared at the message, my hands shaking. This was her game, always had been, insinuating herself into others' lives, taking what she wanted. But not this time. I wouldn't let her win again. I typed back, "Can't make it. Busy." Her reply was instant. "Shame. Adam mentioned he might stop by the studio. Guess I'll have to entertain him myself." The phone slipped from my fingers. Adam, going to her yoga class? He'd never shown interest in yoga before. As if on cue, Adam emerged from the bathroom, freshly showered and dressed for work. "I might be late tonight," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Don't wait up." The front door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving me alone with the echoes of Claire's laughter ringing in my ears. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The weeks crawled by, each day a new exercise in restraint, as I watched Claire sink her claws deeper into my life. I'd taken to rearranging Adam's schedule, suggesting impromptu date nights, anything to keep him away from her clutches. But it was like trying to hold water in my hands. The harder I gripped, the more slipped through my fingers. "Lisa, have you seen my blue tie?" Adam called from the bedroom. I froze, the breakfast dishes forgotten in my hands. The blue tie. Claire had complimented it at dinner last week. "I think it's at the cleaners," I lied, the silk fabric burning a hole in my pocket where I'd hidden it. Adam appeared in the doorway, frowning. "That's odd. I could have sworn I just wore it." I shrugged, avoiding his eyes. "Maybe you're thinking of a different one?" He studied me for a moment, then sighed. "Never mind. I'll wear the red one." As he left for work, I sagged against the counter, guilt and fear warring in my chest. What was I becoming? Later that day, I arrived at the studio early, hoping to center myself before class. But as I approached the door, I heard familiar voices inside. "Oh, Adam, you're a natural." Claire's laughter drifted through the crack. "Who knew you had such flexibility?" My hand froze on the doorknob. "Adam, here?" I pushed the door open to find them tangled together on a yoga mat, Claire's hands on Adam's hips as she adjusted his pose. They sprang apart at my entrance, Adam's face flushing red. "Lisa," he stammered. I thought I'd try out a class. Claire was just showing me some basics." I bet she was. I plastered on a smile, my voice sickly sweet. How thoughtful of her. But class doesn't start for another hour. Claire stood, smoothing her yoga pants. "Oh, we were just having a private session. Adam mentioned he was curious, and well, you know me, always happy to help a friend." Friend. The word dripped with insinuation. I turned to Adam, my smile brittle. Honey, why didn't you tell me you wanted to try yoga? I would have been happy to teach you. He shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to surprise you. Thought it might be fun to share your passion. How sweet, Claire cooed. Isn't he just the most thoughtful husband, Lisa? I gritted my teeth. The very best. Now, if you'll excuse us, I need to set up for class. As Claire sauntered out, I busied myself with mats and blocks, unable to look at Adam. He hovered nearby, clearing his throat. Lisa, You should get going. I cut him off. Wouldn't want to be late for work. He hesitated, then nodded. Right. I'll see you tonight? I didn't answer, focusing on aligning the mats with military precision. The door closed softly behind him, and I finally allowed myself to breathe. That evening, I sat at my vanity, mechanically brushing my hair. In the mirror, I watched Adam putter around the room, guilt etched on his face. Lisa, he began, about today. It's fine, I interrupted, the brush moving faster. You wanted to try yoga. There's nothing wrong with that. He sat on the bed, sighing. I know you're upset, but Claire's just being friendly. You're reading too much into this. The brush clattered to the floor. I whirled to face him, years of pent-up frustration boiling over. Friendly? Adam, she's practically throwing herself at you. How can you be so blind? You're being paranoid, he snapped. Claire's not like that. Maybe if you gave her a chance. A chance, I laughed bitterly. I've known her a lot longer than you have. Trust me, this is exactly like her. Adam stood, his face hardening. I think I can judge someone's character for myself, Lisa. I'm not some naive schoolboy you need to protect. As he stormed out of the room, I turned back to the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at me. This couldn't go on. Something had to give. My phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Great seeing Adam today. He's such a quick learner. Drinks tomorrow? I stared at the message, a plan forming in my mind. Two could play at this game. It was time to beat Claire at her own twisted game. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, my world crumbling around me. The sight before me was unmistakable. Claire draped across our bed, her blonde hair fanned out on my pillow. And Adam hastily buttoning his shirt, his face a mask of guilt and defiance. Lisa, he started, but I held up a hand, silencing him. Claire sat up, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. Oh, darling, did we forget to lock the door? The casual cruelty in her voice snapped something inside me. I lunged forward, my hand connecting with her cheek in a resounding slap. She reeled back, shock replacing her smug expression. Lisa, Adam grabbed my arm, pulling me away. What the hell are you doing? I wrenched free from his grasp, my voice low and dangerous. What am I doing? What are you doing, Adam? In our bed? With her. Claire rubbed her cheek, her eyes glittering with malice. Now, Lisa. No need for dramatics. Adam and I were just reconnecting. Reconnecting? I spat the word out. You barely knew each other a month ago. Adam stepped between us, his face flushed. Lisa, calm down. This isn't what it looks like. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Really? Because it looks like you're sleeping with my so-called friend in our marital bed. It just happened, he pleaded. We didn't mean for it to go this far. Claire slithered off the bed, wrapping herself around Adam's arm. Oh, I think we meant it, darling. No use lying now. I stared at them, these two people I thought I knew. How had it come to this? How long? I whispered. Adam looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Claire, however, had no such qualms. Does it matter? The point is, Lisa dear, that Adam's made his choice. And it's not you. The room spun around me. I gripped the doorframe for support, my knees threatening to buckle. Adam? I pleaded, hating the weakness in my voice. Is this true? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched on his face. Lisa, you have to understand. Things between us, they've been strained for a while. Claire, she makes me feel alive again. Each word was a dagger to my heart. And I whispered. That's not what I meant. He backpedaled. It's just, you've become so controlling lately, always checking up on me, rearranging my schedule. I felt suffocated. I was trying to protect you, I cried, to keep her away from you. Claire laughed, a tinkling sound that set my teeth on edge. Oh, honey, you can't keep a man who doesn't want to be kept. I turned to Adam, searching his face for any sign of the man I'd loved for 15 years. Is that true? You don't want to be with me anymore? He hesitated, and in that moment I knew it was over. I think, he said slowly, that we need some time apart to figure things out. Claire clapped her hands together. Wonderful idea. I have a spare room you can use, Adam. We'll have you moved in by tonight. The casual way they discussed dismantling my life sent a surge of rage through me. Get out, I hissed. Both of you, now. Adam reached for me. Lisa, please. Get out, I screamed, grabbing the nearest object, a framed photo of our wedding day, and hurling it at the wall. It shattered, glass raining down on the floor. They scrambled past me, Claire tugging Adam along. As the front door slammed shut, I sank to the ground, surrounded by the broken pieces of my marriage. Hours passed. Night fell. I sat in the darkness, my mind replaying every moment, every sign I should have seen. The late nights at work. The sudden interest in yoga. The way he'd light up when Claire entered a room. As dawn broke, casting pale light across the wreckage of my bedroom, I made a decision. This wasn't over. Claire had taken everything from me, but I wouldn't go down without a fight. It was time to show them both what I was truly capable of. I reached for my phone, my fingers steady as I dialed a number I never thought I'd use. Hello, I said, my voice cold and determined. I'd like to speak to a divorce lawyer. The divorce papers lay on the kitchen table, a stark reminder of how quickly life can unravel. I stared at them, my coffee growing cold in my hands. It had been 3 weeks since I'd caught Adam and Claire together, and the pain hadn't dulled. If anything, it had crystallized into something harder, sharper. The doorbell rang, startling me from my reverie. I wasn't expecting anyone. As I opened the door, my heart sank. Claire stood there, looking infuriatingly perfect in a sundress that probably cost more than my monthly yoga studio rent. Lisa, darling, she cooed, pushing past me into the house. We need to talk. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to shove her back out. There's nothing to talk about, Claire. You won. Congratulations. She laughed, the sound grating on my nerves. Oh, honey, this isn't about winning or losing. It's about moving forward. I followed her into the kitchen, watching as she eyed the divorce papers. Moving forward? I echoed. Is that what you call destroying someone's marriage? Claire turned to me, her expression a mask of false sympathy. Lisa, let's be honest, your marriage was over long before I came along. I just expedited things. You manipulative bye. She held up a hand, cutting me off. Now, no need for name-calling. I'm here to help, believe it or not. I laugh. Help? How could you possibly help me? Claire's eyes glittered. By offering you a way out, a clean break, so to speak. She reached into her purse, pulling out a thick envelope. Adam feels terrible about how things ended. He wants to make it right. I stared at the envelope, suspicion gnawing at me. What is that? A settlement offer, Claire said smoothly. Quite generous, really. Enough for you to start over somewhere new, away from all this unpleasantness. My hand trembled as I took the envelope. Inside was a check with more zeros than I'd ever seen in my life. For a moment I was tempted to take the money and run, leave this whole mess behind. But then I looked at Claire's smug face, and something inside me snapped. You think you can buy me off? I hissed, ripping the check in half. That I'll just disappear and let you two live happily ever after? Claire's smile faltered. Don't be foolish, Lisa. This is the best offer you're going to get. I stepped closer, my voice low and dangerous. You have no idea what I'm capable of, Claire. You think you've won? This is just the beginning. For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. What are you talking about? I smiled, cold and hard. You'll see. Now get out of my house. As the door slammed behind her, I sank to the floor, my mind racing. I'd acted tough, but the truth was I had no idea what to do next. How could I possibly fight back against Claire and Adam? My phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. Heard about what happened. I'm so sorry, Lisa. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. David. David, Claire's ex-husband. We'd met briefly at a party years ago before Claire had sunk her claws into him, too. I hesitated, then typed back, Thanks, David. Could use a friendly ear right now. His response was immediate. Coffee tomorrow? I know a quiet place where we won't run into anyone. I stared at the message, an idea forming. Claire had taken everything from me, used her knowledge of my life to manipulate Adam. But two could play at that game, and who would know Claire's weaknesses better than the man she'd discarded? My fingers flew across the keyboard. Perfect. See you then. As I hit send, a sense of calm washed over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Claire thought she'd broken me, But she'd only succeeded in setting me free. Free from the constraints of being the perfect wife, the understanding friend. I stood, walking to the mirror in the hallway. The woman staring back at me was different. Harder, determined. "Game on, Claire," I whispered to my reflection. "Let's see how you like it when the tables are turned." I picked up the phone again, dialing my lawyer. It was time to stop playing defense. Tomorrow, with David's help, I'd start planning my counterattack, and this time I wouldn't hold back. The courtroom felt suffocating as I sat across from Adam, his eyes darting between me and Claire, who sat smugly in the gallery. My lawyer's voice droned on about asset division and alimony, but all I could focus on was the way Adam's hand twitched, as if longing to reach for Claire. "Your Honor," my lawyer said, "given Mr. Thompson's infidelity and Mrs. Thompson's contributions to their shared life, we're seeking a more equitable distribution of assets." Adam's lawyer jumped in, his voice grating. "My client contests the characterization of events, Mrs. Thompson's controlling behavior." "Objection!" my lawyer interjected. "Irrelevant and prejudicial." As they bickered, I caught David's eye in the back of the courtroom. He gave me a subtle nod, a reminder of our plan. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what came next. "Your Honor," I said, standing abruptly, "if I may address the court?" The judge peered at me over his glasses. "This is unusual, Mrs. Thompson, but proceed." I walked to the center of the courtroom, feeling all eyes on me. "I'd like to withdraw my petition for alimony and asset division." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Adam's jaw dropped while Claire's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "I don't want anything from a man who couldn't honor his vows," I continued, my voice steady. "Let him keep it all. I'll rebuild on my own terms." The judge looked bewildered. "Mrs. Thompson, are you sure about this?" I nodded firmly. "Absolutely, Your Honor. I just want this divorce finalized as quickly as possible." As I returned to my seat, I caught a glimpse of Adam's face, a mixture of relief and confusion. He thought he was getting off easy. Little did he know, outside the courthouse, Claire cornered me. "What are you playing at, Lisa?" she hissed. I smiled serenely. "No games, Claire. I'm just ready to move on." Her eyes flicked to David, who stood waiting by his car. With him. How pathetic. "Careful, Claire," I warned softly. "Your true colors are showing." As she stormed off, David approached. "You were amazing in there," he said, squeezing my hand. I leaned into him, feeling a flutter in my chest that I hadn't experienced in years. "Couldn't have done it without you." Over the next few weeks, Adam's transformation was startling. Without my carefully planned meals and exercise routines, he quickly put on weight. His once crisp suits grew tight, his chin doubling. I, on the other hand, threw myself into reinvention. With David's encouragement, I expanded my yoga studio, even starting a teacher training program. We spent evenings planning and dreaming, his business acumen complementing my passion perfectly. One night, as we celebrated the studio's expansion over dinner, my phone buzzed. Adam's name flashed on the screen. "Aren't you going to answer it?" David asked. I silenced the phone. No need. He's not my problem anymore. But curiosity got the better of me. Later that night, I listened to Adam's voicemail. "Lisa," his voice slurred, clearly drunk. "I messed up, Claire. She's not who I thought. Can we talk?" I deleted the message, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wanted to gloat, to revel in his misery, but mostly I felt pity and relief that I'd escaped that fate. The next morning, I woke to find Claire exposed, trending on social media. Somehow, her history of home-wrecking and manipulation had leaked online. Her carefully curated image was in tatters. As I scrolled through the posts, my phone lit up with a text from David. "You didn't have anything to do with this, did you?" I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the reply button. This was the moment of truth. Did I take the high road, or embrace the darker path of revenge? The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I opened it to find Claire, mascara streaking down her face. "You," she snarled. "You did this." As she lunged at me, I realized the true battle was just beginning, and this time I was ready to fight fire with fire. I stood my ground as Claire's mascara-streaked face contorted with rage. Her manicured nails dug into my arms as she shook me violently. "You ruined everything," she shrieked. "How dare you?" I pried her hands off me, my voice steady. "I didn't do anything, Claire. Your past caught up with you." She lunged again, but this time I was ready. Years of yoga had honed my reflexes, and I easily sidestepped her attack. Claire stumbled, crashing into the entryway table. "What's going on here?" David's voice boomed from behind me. He must have arrived just in time to witness the chaos. Claire's eyes darted between us, realization dawning. "You too?" she spat. "You planned this together, didn't you?" Before I could respond, Adam's car screeched to a halt in front of the house. He lumbered out, his once trim physique now soft and bulging. "Claire," he called, his voice slurring slightly. "What are you doing here?" The scene before us was surreal. Claire, disheveled and wild-eyed, Adam, unkempt and swaying slightly, David, a pillar of strength beside me, and me, standing at the center of the storm I'd inadvertently created. "Adam," Claire cooed, her demeanor shifting instantly. "These two are trying to destroy us. We need to stick together." I watched as Adam's bleary eyes tried to focus. "Lisa," he mumbled, "I've been trying to call you." "I know," I said softly. "But it's too late, Adam." Claire's head whipped around. "Too late for what? What have you done?" David stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "It's over, Claire. The truth is out there now. All of it." "What truth?" Adam asked, confusion etched on his face. I took a deep breath. "Claire's history, Adam, her pattern of manipulation, of destroying relationships, it's all been exposed online." Claire let out a strangled cry. "You can't prove anything." "We didn't have to," David said. "Your ex-boyfriends, the women whose lives you've ruined, they all came forward. The evidence was overwhelming." Adam stumbled back, his face ashen. "Is this true, Claire? Was I just another conquest?" Claire's mask slipped, revealing the cold calculation beneath. "Don't be ridiculous, Adam. We love each other. This is just Lisa's jealousy talking." But I could see the doubt creeping into Adam's eyes. He turned to me, his voice barely a whisper. "Lisa, I'm so sorry." The words I'd longed to hear for months now felt hollow. I shook my head. "It's not me you need to apologize to, Adam. It's yourself." Claire, sensing she was losing control, made one last desperate attempt. She lunged at me again, her nails raking across my cheek. I stumbled back, shocked by the sudden attack. David moved to intervene, but I held up a hand. "No," I said firmly. "This ends now." I straightened, looking Claire directly in the eye. "You've taken enough from me, Claire. My marriage, my trust, my peace of mind. But you know what? You can't take my dignity or my strength." I turned to Adam. "And you. I loved you for 15 years, but I won't waste another moment on someone who couldn't see my worth." With trembling hands, I reached for my phone. "I'm calling the police. Claire, you can explain your assault to them." Claire's face drained of color. "You wouldn't dare." "Try me," I said, my finger hovering over the dial button. The tension in the air was palpable. Adam looked lost, his world crumbling around him. Claire's eyes darted frantically, searching for an escape, and David stood tall beside me, a silent pillar of support. As I pressed call, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. This was it, the moment everything changed. The life I'd known was gone, shattered by betrayal and lies. But from the ashes, something new was emerging, something stronger. The operator's voice crackled through the phone. 911, what's your emergency?" I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. "I'd like to report an assault." 1 year later, I stood at the entrance of my expanded yoga studio, watching as students filed in for the grand reopening. The past 12 months had been a whirlwind of change, growth, and unexpected blessings. As I greeted familiar faces and welcomed newcomers, I caught sight of my reflection in the studio's mirrored wall. The woman staring back at me was transformed, confident, radiant, and free from the shadows of the past. David appeared beside me, his hand finding the small of my back. "Ready for your big day?" he asked, his eyes twinkling with pride. I nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude for his unwavering support. More than ready. As I prepared to lead the first class, my phone buzzed with a news alert. I nearly dropped it when I saw the headline, "Disgraced socialite Claire Donovan arrested for fraud." My hands trembled as I read the article. Claire's web of lies had finally unraveled completely. Her attempts to maintain her lavish lifestyle through increasingly desperate means had led to her downfall. And Adam? The article mentioned him briefly, a former associate who had cooperated with the investigation. I could only imagine how far he'd fallen. As I set my phone aside, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The last vestiges of my old life, of the pain and betrayal, were finally fading away. The class began, and I lost myself in the flow of movement and breath. As I guided my students through each pose, I felt a deep sense of purpose and fulfillment. This was where I belonged. After class, as the studio emptied, David approached with a small velvet box in his hand. My heart skipped a beat. "Lisa," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "This past year has been the most incredible journey. You've shown me what true strength and resilience look like. I can't imagine my life without you." He dropped to one knee, opening the box to reveal a stunning sapphire ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. As David slipped the ring onto my finger, I marveled at how life had come full circle. Later that evening, as David and I celebrated with a quiet dinner at home, my phone rang. It was Adam. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" "Lisa." His voice was ragged, barely recognizable. I saw the news about Claire. I wanted to apologize for everything." I closed my eyes, letting his words wash over me. "Thank you, Adam. I hope you find peace." As I hung up, I felt the last piece of the puzzle fall into place. I turned to David, who was watching me with concern. "Everything okay?" he asked. I smiled, feeling a sense of completion I'd never experienced before. Everything is perfect. That night, as I lay in bed next to David, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The pain of betrayal, the fire of revenge, the joy of rediscovery, all of it had shaped me into the woman I was today. Claire had thought she was destroying my life, but in reality, she had set me free to find my true strength, to build a life on my own terms, and to love without fear or doubt. As I drifted off to sleep, I sent a silent thank you to the universe, for the challenges that had tested me, for the friends who had supported me, and for the love that had saved me. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, but I was ready for them all. Because now I knew the truth. Happiness wasn't about having a perfect life. It was about finding perfection in the life you have. And as I snuggled closer to David, feeling the cool metal of my engagement ring against my skin, I knew that this moment, this life, was as perfect as it gets. The storm had passed, and I had not only survived, but thrived. Claire's manipulations, Adam's betrayal, they were all just chapters in a book that had led me here, to this moment of peace, of love, of true fulfillment. As sleep claimed me, I smiled. The best was yet to come, and I couldn't wait to see what the next chapter would bring.